I'm really happy to be here, and thank you for bringing me in for this opportunity. Can you hear me good?
Yes.
Okay. I just brought my works, and really from even all the way to undergrad, some undergrad and grad school, I really think art is a journey, and I would like to just share my journey with you, and especially if you're an art program student. I enjoyed that kind of talk when I was a student. So I started art late, and in fact, I didn't really think I was doing art. I was really into, I think, design and craft. I didn't really think I was an artist, and I was really into metalworking, especially geometric fabrication. Like cutting and bending, soldering, and filing, making things perfect. And this was chalice. It was a lot of folding. If you have done, it's not made perfect, but it was very ambitious. Kind of set my tone, what I was really into at the time. And also, I was really into movements, especially mechanical movements, movements that you control. I have a few videos I'm going to just play. And I made this video for one exhibition. It was kind of biannual, big festival type of thing. So I really developed, kind of working more system again, using these machine screws, and I started using lathes a lot. And I'm trying to making this easier way to to assemble and disassemble, making these structures, and using smaller bearing wheels, and more like better stainless steel wires. And this kind of shows how to put together.
That fast, huh?
So this one, my challenge with this piece was making it adjustable, like speed. And so I want to make it so that I can adjust the speed. It's not really obvious. So I was making all the screws so you can kind of adjust and you can lock it. And I also started collecting old metronomes. So sometimes I would score some broken ones. It's really because I don't really care about the outside shape, and which usually kind of works really well for me. So this kind of medium speed, and if you just change, just like real metronome. It's a little slower if you put it higher. It's not too obvious, but because it's all by the tension. And if you it's low, and then it's a shorter movement and faster. And this one, the challenge I set was make the wings actually float up. So if it's it's very subtle. If you look close, it kind of goes up little by little, and it drops. So I use only one the metronome movements, and I connect it to 5 gears. It should connect to that can, and I made kind of up and down movements at the same time. And also, I'm kind of developing and constantly developing a better way, kind of as formally and also technically, how to assemble them. And this one is kind of swivel and movements. And I try a different form of the base. And my video skill is, improving. I'm kind of learning more about documenting also. And this one is my most recent one. And this one is, again, moving up and down, but I again, I kind of opened to show the mechanism better. And I solved a lot of problems. So this one really runs until the metronome movements goes out. So it's at least half an hour. I will just keep going. And one of my kind of big idea, kind of generating, being generated through I'm working with the pieces is like untamed machines. Like I want to create machine that as kind of like as they're writing outside, like machine is kind of nature to me. Like what artist does, one of the most significant thing what artist does, we interact with our environment. And a lot of times it's nature. We interact with nature. But machine really became most important nature to me. It's my environment. And so for me, it's like creating machine as a nature, not just like something you use it for your purpose. So creating kind of independent life. So I kind of really doing this. And for the last piece, I also kind of documented the process, especially for students. So I can show the process. And this is the metronome, one of the metronomes I use. And I take out the metronome movements. And in this case, I modify a little bit the movement so that I can use it a better way. And I kind of measure where those parts are, and so I create my own housing. And I kind of measure it. So that's going to be my new case. And I connect them. And I usually kind of try those at this point. And as I mentioned at the workshop too, but I usually figure out those mechanical parts first, and then I come up with the shape. I usually have kind of rough idea, but it kind of gives me a better idea when I know how it's going to be, the movements inside. So this is kind of having, and then I'm adding all those extra mechanisms for moving up and down parts. And this is the final piece. This is how it looks. And this is all I have. So, thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, I would love to answer.
I enjoy them. They're beautiful, and in the state they are in the size. But have you ever visioned these grander, like
larger,
with wingspans,
yes,
say 8 to 10 feet?
Yes, that's one of my kind of this time. I want to create. Well, I have two really major projects I'm working on. One is using actually like microcontrollers and like really making real creature that really interacts with you, like how you move, and then that will react to your move, and very complicated movements. And then the other is the bigger scale. I want to create. I made like kind of simple sculptures when I'm in grad school and stuff. I was always making smaller scale, and I really enjoy that, delicate and fragile movements. But I'm definitely interested in making, especially wall piece. And it could be really large wings, but it could be something. One of the things I imagine is something really heavy machine, but then connected to really fragile, medium-sized wings or something like that. That's one of the things that we talked about it before. I like that connection, and then I sometimes wonder why. I discover a lot of things afterwards. Discover things that why I'm so attracted to this. And one of the things I find is I think we kind of identify ourselves with that fragile, kind of awkward wing movements tied up to the machine. Maybe that's how we see ourselves, or that's how we see our nature. like those, they're like those cows, really like locked up and just doing, like locked up by a machine, and then do only one things. And sometimes I wonder, maybe those things just come out through me or through my, forms or my expressions. Yeah, so in that sense, having bigger scale, even heavier machine, like the kind of feel or more, solid, heavy movements, combining with something that'll, bring that even more. I'm definitely interested in those.
Would you say that you concentrate more on the way the images, the movement of the wings make, or more about the connection between human and sculpture?
Oh, you mean like, is it more like kind of technical, like kind of challenge, or is it more connecting or concepts?
Well, is it more of a connecting concept, or more the concentration on the motion of the wings and how it looks actually?
Oh, okay. Is it like more aesthetic as a form, or the social, or kind of those statements? I would say, as I said, statement thing is really I discovered after. I have to admit. I don't really intend. I don't really start with a statement. I should put it that way. I don't start with a statement and then make piece to support that statement. I purely make it because it's interesting. It is strong form and enjoy. But as I'm doing those, I realize maybe that's why we connect, or maybe that's why I connect with those forms so much, so that I'm kind of getting obsessed with it and I'm making more.
Would you say that obsession results in the different ways the wings move? Because that's what I really saw when
Yeah, definitely yes. As I mentioned before, since I'm realizing those, I would try to bring more. But I would say still it's more aesthetic. I mean, it's more movements and interesting movements.
It's interesting you brought up, this is kind of in the same vein of what your intention is, like content-wise, or kind of the undercurrent of it. You mentioned cows being kind of trapped in by machines earlier, and I kind of got the feeling, or I was just curious as to whether or not with your self-portrait, where it's kind of you're caged, it's almost like this kind of device that's holding you kind of against your will, or it's kind of a dark and edgy, and like the wing figure, the series has a quality of almost like they're being subjected to things kind of against their will, and they're kind of on this tick-tock that's going to end. Has your work ever been interpreted like that, and how do you recognize those qualities, or how do you feel about, has it ever been recognized like that?
Yes, definitely. And then I think I was kind of dark. I was like, I really, as a foreign student in America, it was the first year, and I was very frustrated after those making robots, and I didn't know really where to go from there. And actually, my first exhibition, my professor wrote the article, and she actually mentioned, these confined, wings. They look like they're moving freely, but you realize that they are confined and tied up. And then she mentioned something, it kind of reveals, my longings, or kind of being isolated. But that's another thing too. I'm really not big on literal with my work. I'm more interested in, making something amazing, or or the process, or creating something. But so I think those things, a lot of those things happens underneath, and I try hard to recognize those, and try to write those down. But I usually don't start that way, and that's not really. I know some artists really works as statement, and they start with the statement and ideas, social engagements, and they would really use art form for that. But I'm not that school. I'm craftsman. I'm metalsmith. I'm into form, and I embrace those really aggressively. I just really love that, but I don't start from that point, I think. Thank you for joining for today and listening to this.